All right. All right. It's your boy Green. Yeah. Everybody have a seat. Let's talk about it. How we doing? Hope everybody's doing great, living well, in their best life, living in their best light. We're back in with another one. It's the ATP Combat Media. Oh, please remember, like, comment, subscribe, all the above. Trying to build a platform. Dislike, whatever you like to do, What are we talking about today? So much going on. I wanted to address something that I've been waiting to address, to be honest with you. I've been kind of letting it, just trying to see where it's going. Just kind of seeing where it's going. And in specific, speaking on the Jaron Boots, Ennis, and Terrence Crawford, I guess, situation. Is that what it looks like it is right now? I don't know. Let's talk about it. So, if you guys seen one of my older videos, you see me congratulate Jaron Ennis on being upgraded to the IBF welterweight champion. And, honestly, I got some pushback on doing that. People were like, how could you congratulate him? He just got it in the email. He didn't fight for it, et cetera, et cetera. And, honestly, I really understood where everybody was coming from, right? And, at the same time, when I was congratulating him, and I'm still congratulating him, I wasn't necessarily co-signing the way he received the championship, because I understand. I'm sure Jaron, and he's made it clear in some videos that, he if he would have wrote this out, he would have had it happen in a different way, right? He wouldn't have just had the belts transferred to him. He would have rather had fought somebody, beat somebody up, and got the belt. But, the IBF handled it the way they did. I do think there was a better way to handle that situation than the way they approached it. But ultimately, it happened the way it did. But at the same time, the reason I put out the video congratulating him was because I really do believe he deserves the accolade he received. I do believe he deserves it, and honestly, he's defended the IBF interim championship twice already, right? So in some ways, he did fight and win that belt. But I understand, at the end of the day, he didn't fight the champion and defeat the champion to receive the belt, and that's always an awkward situation. And what's been happening because of that? Well, some people are chastising Jaron, saying he's not the real champion, this, that, and the other. And a lot more people, in my opinion, are chastising Terrence Crawford. Basically blaming him, saying that because he wouldn't fight Jaron Boots Ennis, that's why this happened the way it did. That, in all fairness, Terrence Crawford should give Jaron Boots and Ennis an opportunity to win the belt instead of him getting it that way. Well, Terrence Crawford has expressed understanding for Jaron Boots Ennis, in the fact that he's been there himself as far as struggling to get opportunities to get a championship belt or to get the recognition that he feels he deserves to have. But at the same time saying, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, Terrence has his own aspirations for greatness. With going to 154, getting an undisputed title up there, and also even challenging Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds for an undisputed super middleweight championship belt. But unfortunately, Jaron Boots Ennis is not in Terrence Crawford's crosshairs or in his plans, or he doesn't see where a fight with him would fit into what he has planned. So, the industry or the community, the boxing space, is split in half about this situation, because let's be honest, at the end of the day, a fight between Terrence Bud Crawford and Jaron Boots Ennis would be epic. I mean, people who understand boxing, I'm talking about not the casuals, but even some casuals, right? But not the casuals, specifically real boxing pundits alike who understand how epic that would be, because Jaron Boots Ennis just checks all the boxes, and so does Terrence Bud Crawford. And then to see them meet in a squared circle, knowing the dog that they bring into their fights, that's just a formula for a huge, huge explosion in the middle of that ring. But at the same time, you know, in my opinion, and just to be direct about it, because that's what this is going to be about, this segment is definitely about my opinion. This is not about reporting news. This is about my perspective on the whole situation. So in my perspective, we're dealing with a generational gap here. Unfortunately for Jaron Boots Ennis, we're dealing with a generational gap here. I've mentioned before in another video about how I believed there were 3 stages, and you can actually break it down into more stages, but I just generalize it to say that there's 3 stages that a boxer will go through in a journey to greatness. So the first stage, I don't have a name for it, but the first stage is when a boxer is going to fight any and everybody. He's looking to build his reputation. He's looking to show the world who he is. And he's beating up everybody who will dare step in the ring with him, right? Then the second stage is going to be where he's actually beginning to look for championships. He's stalking champions, and he's trying to get belts, and he's trying to decorate himself, right, to come up in the rankings in the correct way, fighting specific fighters that are going to get him where he needs to go to. He's at this point going to be conscious of who he's fighting and why he's fighting them, because they're all on the path to a belt. And in the third stage, you would think that the fighter's already built his reputation. There's an understanding of who he is. He's in the latter part of his career when he's going to be trying to plan his exit, and usually around that time you'll see them start trying to take those epic big money fights, the biggest money fights that they can get, because they're on their way out the door. So legacy is part of it, but that's in that third stage. Money and monetary compensation becomes very important. Well, in this situation, I believe that right now Boots Ennis is in the second stage of his career, where he's looking to he's looking to pile up titles. He's looking to be undisputed in his 147-pound weight class division. He'll probably be looking to do it in 154 and so forth and so forth. And Terrence Crawford is in the latter part of his career, where he's already 2 times undisputed in 2 different weight classes. He feels like, his best fights, a lot of his best fights are behind him. And right now he's looking for specific fights that are going to speak on his legacy that he's going to leave in boxing, but also give him the hugest monetary compensation that he could get. So because of that generational gap between the second part of the journey and the third part of the journey that Terrence Crawford is at, unfortunately the stars don't seem, at least presently, to be aligning to see both these gentlemen jump in the ring. But people are going to speak. I've been on panels where people I don't care what Terrence Bud Crawford wants. I'm talking about what I want. I can respect that and definitely understand that. I mean, after all, at the end of the day, what Terrence Crawford eats doesn't make you shit, right? I definitely understand that. But ultimately, what Terrence Crawford wants to do makes a difference on the fight that you get to see. So, content creators alike can stand on their soapboxes and preach and whine and really passionately speak, we'll say, on why Terrence Crawford may be wrong or why he should fight Boots Ennis. But ultimately, the decision obviously lies with these 2 fighters and what they're able to coordinate. So dealing with the situation presently for what it is, what's the best route for both of these guys to go down to get to where they need to get to? Well, I think Terrence Bud Crawford has earned the right to go ahead and pursue greatness in the way he feels greatness is going to be. And as a fan, I'll be sitting here watching, and I think I'll enjoy it just as much to see him, unify, beat Jermell Charlo, beat Tim Tszyu. I think recently, earlier today, don't quote me, but I feel like another one of Jermell Charlo's belts may have been stripped from him. I don't know. I haven't confirmed that all the way, but I feel like that's what I heard happen earlier. I'll get back to you guys with more accurate information on a later video. But regardless, his aspirations to go up there and unify titles and become an undisputed champion, or to go fight Canelo Alvarez, I think he's earned the right to do that, and has my support at the end of the day to do what he sees fit for his career. As far as Jaron Boots Ennis, my take on it is, brother, focus on the division you're in. You don't need to beat Terrence Crawford to be validated as one of the best welterweights and the king of the 147-pound division right now. I expect that the other sanctioning bodies, or maybe even Terrence Crawford, will either vacate his titles once he goes officially up to 154, or the sanctioning bodies may take the belts from him. So they'll be available. And right now, you are the full IBF champion. So, pursue defeating everybody in your division. I don't think chasing around Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence or people who aren't even there anymore is necessarily what you need to do to build your legacy. But I can definitely understand you wanting to. And the latter part of my advice would be, listen, if it's that serious, if that's what needs to happen for you to feel validated in the space that you're in, then you're going to have to make some hard decisions. And one of those decisions may be, pushing up and going to 154 and following him up there. But right now, presently, while Terrence Crawford is dealing with an activated rematch clause that Errol Spence has put out, he's focused on Errol Spence. So I wouldn't even be concerned about this situation until after their fight happens, right? After their rematch happens, because after the rematch, we'll see more clearly. I'm sure Terrence Crawford will communicate at that point as to whether or not he plans on moving up or staying at 147 or maybe even retiring. And look, the stars may align where Terrence Crawford is hearing the cry of the people, and maybe he decides if there's enough money in it, if they can generate enough money to make it worth his while, we may get to see the fight after all. But until then, I really don't see how helpful throwing shots at anybody involved in this situation is going to be. Because at the end of the day, until it's on the table, what are we going to say? Terrence Crawford hasn't confirmed nor denied his whether or not he would come back to 147, whether or not he's leaving 147. I mean, he's just spoken on aspirations of doing things outside 147 pounds. He hasn't confirmed any contracts. I've even heard people say, well, why doesn't he schedule a fight with Jaron Boots Ennis after the fight with Errol Spence? Well, let me ask you guys something. What if he loses that fight against Errol Spence? Then what? Is Jaron Boots Ennis going to wait by just to get another, we have a rematch to do? Or is it even worth anything to Jaron Boots Ennis to fight Terrence Crawford if he loses against Errol Spence and doesn't have the titles anymore? At that point, what are they even fighting for? So I think there's a lot of things that are depending on the outcome of the Errol Spence-Terrence Crawford rematch. So we have to wait. We should wait. It only makes sense to wait. It makes sense for Terrence to wait on whether or not he's going to make a decision on what he wants to do either way, because this Errol Spence fight is the one that's on the table. It's what he's dealing with. Asking him to vacate the belts right now, and if he's not going to, you don't know what he's going to do. All right? Only he knows what he's going to do. And I'll tell you what, the fact that he's not just willing to let go of the belts right now tells me that he's not guaranteeing to leave 147 right now at this moment. That's what it says to me. Until he actually vacates those belts, I don't know that he's going to 154 in the match after that. There's just so many unanswered questions and so many things that are pending the results from this rematch that we just got to stand by and wait. All the fans, and fans are great, right? The fans are buying the pay-per-views. The fans are buying the tickets to go in the stadium. Fans are great. But at the same time, this social media platform called YouTube has given people the opportunity to skip being patient and embrace being first. And what ends up happening is there's a narrative getting pushed out there by all these different platforms, by a lot of platforms, I'll say, not all of them, because some of them are actually right down the middle calling it for what they see, but a lot of them are just racing to be first. And people the casuals who are reading who are listening to these platforms, they're mistaking opinion for facts. So they're walking around. They're walking around with narratives like, "Oh, Bud Crawford, he says he won't fight Errol. He's going to force Errol to fight at 147, or he's trying to drain. He knows Errol can't make it 147. Why is he making him do that?" Or Bud Crawford said he wants more money to fight him. He's not going to pay him unless he gets more money. Meanwhile, when you really look at the situation, we've never heard Terrence Crawford ask for more money out of his mouth. At least we've never heard him say, "Listen, he's either going to fight me at 147, or we're not going to fight." Or we're not going to fight. All he's ever said is, as far as he knows and understands right now presently, is the fight is going to happen in a certain weight class. That's what the contract said. If something different is going to happen, it's going to be based on Errol Spence writing a note, making the sanctioning bodies or the commission aware that he's unable to make a weight anymore, and that the fight, he's going to have to request for the fight to happen at 154. And at that point, Bud hasn't said whether he's going to oblige him or not. I can say in the post-conference, he said that the fight could happen at 154. You combine that with Bud's own ambitions to be a unified champion, undisputed champion at 154, and even calling out Canelo, I don't see why he wouldn't do the fight at 154. But is he wrong for saying, as far as he knows, this is where the fights happen? How does he know Errol Spence doesn't want to fight him for the undisputed title? How do you know Errol Spence isn't out there working his ass off right now, trying to see and make his own mind up as to whether or not he can make this weight cut at 147 and go down there and get his opportunity to become undisputed? Or if he's going to just say, I've tried, it's not happening in a healthy way, I'm going to 154. We don't know. Keeping in mind, of course, Errol Spence hasn't said anything, and his fan base will speak confidently for him in a way that's just, it's honestly uncomfortable to see, because it's just like, how you guys doing this? But once again, being in a content creating space, I understand that people want to be the first to drop news. They want to be on top of everything. That every little Twitter message that comes out there, they're trying to, base a whole entire 20-minute, 30-minute spiel on a channel off of a 10-second tweet. Of a 10-second tweet, and turn it into this whole breaking story. It is what it is, But at the end of the day, like I said, Jaron Boots Ennis, Terrence Crawford, generational gap. Jaron Boots Ennis right now doesn't have any matches on his plate. He should be looking at a standing. I always get this guy's name messed up. Staniosis. Staniosis? I hope that's correct. I can spell it. Saying it's always been complicated for me. He should be looking at a Keith Thurman, a Mario Barrios. He has many fights that he can be entertaining right now in the weight class, and he has fights he can take that will keep him busy while this whole Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford situation gets figured out and the match happens. And at that point, once the match ends, if Terrence Crawford comes out victorious, then at that point we can put a little bit better pressure on Terrence Crawford to either vacate the titles he has right now or to defend his IBF title against Jaron Boots Ennis. And truth be told, he still doesn't have to take the fight with Jaron Boots Ennis because Terrence Crawford no longer has the IBF title. So what would they be fighting for? I mean, I guess going for undisputed, right? So at that point, but I'm just saying, as far as the mandatory, I don't know if Jaron Boots Ennis would be the mandatory at that point for Terrence Crawford. But, obviously I think if Terrence Crawford were to stay at 147, I would feel some kind of way if he'd go and fight somebody else in that weight class and not go to reunify the belts and give Jaron an opportunity at 147. So if Terrence Crawford fights at 147 again, it should 100% be against Jaron Boots Ennis, in my personal opinion. But, how much does my opinion hold weight in that situation? Probably not a lot, right? But like I said, we have to wait and see what happens with that fight. And we got to stop looking past that fight as if we know what's going to happen. And Errol Spence fans, how do you guys look even like putting pressure on Terrence Crawford to coordinate a title defense against Jaron Boots Ennis when you don't even – do you even believe in Errol? Because if Errol wins, what title defense is Terrence Crawford going to do? So we all got to keep our heads on our shoulders, right? We have to tap into our critical thinking skills and accept the fact that things happen in layers and in a certain order. And there's an order of events in the way things happen, and we can't skip that, and we shouldn't skip that. And that's how I feel about it, But look, comment. Let me know what you think. Am I crazy? Subscribe. Like. Dislike. I like the likes better. but dislike if you must. But let me know what you think. If you see it the same way I do, or if you see it in a different way. Like I said, I think we're overlooking Errol Spence when we take this energy into asking Terrence Crawford to coordinate something after the fight without the fight happening. And I think Jaron has plenty of things he can be doing in the 147-pound division to start cementing his legacy and putting himself that much closer to becoming an undisputed champion at 147 pounds. But on that note, it's your boy, Claymore Rain. This is ATP Combat Media, and we are out at this point. Let's get it.